The committee room fell silent as Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett stepped to the podium, her deep purple suit standing out against the chamber's dark mahogany backdrop. The lights overhead seemed to sharpen as C-SPAN cameras drew closer, catching the unshakable firmness in her eyes. With practiced ease, she slid a hand into her portfolio, her composure calm, yet carrying the unmistakable weight of intention. "Before we proceed any further," Crockett began, her voice level yet carrying enough force to demand attention, "I have come into possession of materials that fundamentally challenge the accuracy of statements Miss Leavitt has been making for the past 3 months." Across the long table, Karoline Leavitt, serving as Deputy Press Secretary for the White House, halted mid-gesture. Only moments ago she had been exchanging easy smiles and quiet nods with supportive members of her party. Now recognition flickered in her eyes as she spotted the sealed envelope in Crockett's hand. "Madam Chair, I request that this be entered into the official record," Crockett continued, holding the envelope aloft so every camera could see it. "Contained inside are direct communications from Ms. Leavitt's office which demonstrate she knowingly misrepresented border security data to Congress." The reaction was immediate and explosive. Republican lawmakers raised their voices in protest. Staffers whispered urgently. The chair was forced to slam the gavel again and again to restore control. Meanwhile, the cameras captured an unmistakable shift in Leavitt's expression. First disbelief, then irritation, and at last, something far closer to fear. Leavitt whispered sharply to her attorney. Her hands trembled slightly as she gathered her notes and began rising from her seat. The flush rising across her face betrayed just how destabilizing this moment was. As she attempted to make her way toward the exit, the room watched her in silence, broken only by scattered murmurs. This wasn't political theater. It was a pivot point. It was the moment Jasmine Crockett altered the entire trajectory of the debate. Before the confrontation, Karoline Leavitt had enjoyed the image of a fast-rising powerhouse, one of the youngest high-ranking communicators. In a modern White House, her sharp commentary regularly went viral across conservative media circles. Where she was hailed as unwavering and incisive, she built her reputation speaking with certainty, delivering firm defenses of the administration's stance on border enforcement. Her background included roles under top House Republican figures and a stint within the Trump administration's communications team. Influential strategists frequently mentioned her name when discussing the future of conservative messaging. On television panels, she was often polished, poised, and well-rehearsed. Her particular battleground had become immigration. For months, Leavitt cited figures that suggested significant improvements in unlawful crossing rates and targeted deportations. These statistics bolstered the administration's position that it had stabilized a crisis it claimed was inherited. Jasmine Crockett, however, came from a different world. She had forged her reputation in courtrooms, challenging systems that targeted vulnerable communities. Her congressional career began not with deference but with intent. She had once said, "I didn't come to Washington to collect friendships. I came to confront failures." That line became a defining introduction to her approach. While Leavitt dominated talk shows friendly to her party, Crockett earned recognition for her ability to interrogate with precision, often dismantling claims by grounding them in verified facts. Their clash had been inevitable. 3 months earlier, when Leavitt first presented the border data, Crockett had questioned its authenticity. She stated plainly that the figures appeared manipulated, but she did not yet have documentation. Leavitt had brushed the concern aside confidently, saying, "The numbers speak for themselves." The moment trended across political media, setting the stage for this confrontation. Now, with an important Senate vote approaching that would shape immigration law for years, the stakes could not have been higher. If the numbers were proven inflated, public support would collapse. That morning, no outward sign foreshadowed upheaval. Leavitt appeared composed, flipping through her binder with her usual polish. Crockett conversed quietly with colleagues, though her eyes lingered on Leavitt with a subtle intensity. When Leavitt finally began speaking, her testimony flowed seamlessly. Percentages, charts, success claims. She highlighted reductions in illegal entries and increases in deportations of individuals labeled high risk. The narrative was smooth, confident, familiar. Then Crockett took the microphone. She began mildly, confirming Leavitt's assertions regarding the sources and verification of the data. Leavitt affirmed every point without hesitation, asserting that the numbers had not been altered or influenced in misleading ways. And then Crockett paused, requested a short recess, and changed the tone entirely. When the committee reconvened, the energy in the room was different. More reporters had arrived. Members leaned forward, sensing a pivotal reveal. Crockett asked about a particular email dated March 15th. The color drained from Leavitt's face. The email instructed DHS officials to count individuals with pending criminal charges as convicted offenders in deportation statistics, dramatically shifting the numbers. Then Crockett referenced another directive. Multiple border attempts by the same individual were to be counted as entirely separate crossings, inflating previous baselines to make current performance appear improved. Silence overtook the chamber. Even Leavitt's strongest political allies looked shaken. The revelations suggested something beyond misinterpretation. They suggested deliberate strategy. Leavitt inhaled slowly, visibly struggling to steady herself. Then she spoke into the microphone. "Congresswoman, without seeing these emails in full context, I cannot properly respond." "That's fair," Crockett nodded, "which is why I prepared copies for every member of this committee. Madam Chair, I request permission to enter these documents into the record and distribute them." And that was the moment everything changed. As staffers handed out the documents, cameras captured Leavitt's expression, shifting from professional composure to visible panic. She whispered something to her counsel, who shook his head, urging her to stay, but it was too late. The room watched in shock as Karoline Leavitt, the administration's usually composed defender, stood abruptly, gathered her papers with trembling hands, and headed for the exit. "Miss Leavitt," the chair called, "we are not in recess. Please return to your seat." Leavitt paused, turned slightly, and said loud enough for the microphones, "I need to consult with my department. I'll return shortly." But everyone knew she wouldn't be coming back. Not that day. The committee doors closed behind her, leaving stunned silence. For several seconds, nobody moved. A high-ranking administration official walking out mid-testimony was unprecedented. The committee chair was the first to recover. "Let the record show the witness has left without being excused," she said, voice mixing shock and disapproval. "We will take a 30-minute recess to determine how to proceed." Crockett was not finished. "Madam Chair, before we recess, the committee should review the documents I've provided. Miss Leavitt's departure does not change the fact that we have evidence suggesting the administration deliberately manipulated border security data presented to Congress and the public." The chair nodded. "The documents will be reviewed during the recess. Committee will reconvene in 30 minutes. As members left for the break, cameras captured several Republican representatives examining the documents with furrowed brows, while Democratic members gathered around Crockett. Expressions a mix of astonishment and admiration. During the recess, the story spread rapidly across media platforms. Leavitt's walkout trended on X within minutes. Cable news interrupted programming with breaking news alerts. The White House press office issued a brief statement. Deputy Press Secretary Leavitt needed to consult with colleagues on new information presented during the hearing and would respond at an appropriate time. When the committee reconvened, Leavitt's seat remained empty. Her legal counsel was also gone. The chair addressed the situation directly. "We've been informed that Deputy Press Secretary Leavitt will not return today. The committee must decide whether to reschedule her testimony or proceed with other measures." She paused, then continued more gravely, having reviewed the documents provided by Congresswoman Crockett. "This committee faces a serious matter regarding potentially misleading information provided to Congress." Crockett requested permission to speak and was granted it. "What we have isn't a case of differing interpretations or honest mistakes," she said, measured but firm. "The documents show a deliberate effort to change how border security statistics were calculated to make the administration's policies appear more successful. This communication explicitly acknowledges the new methodology would make comparisons with prior years misleading, yet they proceeded anyway." Then Miss Leavitt presented these statistics to Congress as if they were apples-to-apples comparisons. One Republican member, Congressman James Walsh, asked to speak. "While I have concerns about how these documents were obtained," he said neutrally, "the content raises questions that deserve answers. I suggest we formally request DHS provide the complete unaltered border security data using consistent methodology across administrations so we can assess the actual impact of current policies. Walsh's statement caused another shockwave. By neither defending Leavitt nor dismissing Crockett's evidence, he highlighted the seriousness of the committee's findings. The seriousness of the situation had been clearly acknowledged. His recommendation that the committee review the actual data implied that prior information could not be fully trusted. Building on this, Democratic Congresswoman Elena Sanchez proposed, "I move that we also request all internal communications regarding any changes to data collection and reporting methods for border security metrics." Since the start of this administration, the motion passed with bipartisan support, a rare occurrence in the typically divided committee. The camera focused on Crockett, who maintained a professional and serious demeanor, despite achieving what political analysts would later call the year's most significant oversight victory. As the hearing continued, the committee explored the implications of their revelations. With Leavitt absent, members from both parties pressed the remaining witnesses more rigorously. Career officials from the Department of Homeland Security were called to testify. One exchange highlighted the shift in the room's atmosphere. Congressman Walsh asked a senior DHS data analyst, "Based on your experience, what effect would counting pending charges instead of convictions have on enforcement statistics?" The analyst, visibly uneasy but obligated to answer truthfully, replied, "It would increase the numbers by roughly 30% based on historical patterns. Additionally, counting repeat border crossings by the same individual as separate events rather than tracking unique individuals could double or triple the baseline numbers depending on the time frame." This testimony confirmed what Crockett's documents had indicated. The administration's reported border security statistics had been fundamentally altered, making meaningful comparisons impossible. At the conclusion of the hearing, the chair announced an unusual measure. Given the extraordinary nature of today's revelations, this committee will prepare an interim report within 72 hours. We will also refer this matter to the House Ethics Committee for further review regarding potentially misleading testimony provided to Congress. Outside the committee room, reporters swarmed Crockett in the Capitol hallway. "Congresswoman, how long have you had these documents?" One shouted, "How do you respond to the White House claim that you ambushed Miss Leavitt unfairly?" asked another. Crockett stopped and addressed the cameras directly. These documents came from a whistleblower within the department who was concerned that Congress and the American public were being misled. "My staff and I verified their authenticity before presenting them today. This isn't about politics. It's about truth. The American people deserve honest information, not manipulated statistics designed to fit a predetermined narrative," she added. Miss Leavitt's decision to leave rather than address the document speaks volumes. When confronted with evidence of wrongdoing, she chose to walk away rather than explain or defend her actions. The American people can draw their own conclusions. Meanwhile, at the White House, an emergency meeting convened in the Chief of Staff's office. Sources later told the Washington Post that the president was furious. Political repercussions were immediate, with several senators delaying votes on the immigration bill until accurate data could be reviewed. By evening, the story dominated the news cycle, with split-screen footage of Crockett holding the documents and Leavitt walking out playing repeatedly. Analysts across the political spectrum agreed. This was a defining moment with lasting implications for the administration's credibility. On his prime-time show, conservative commentator Michael Stevens, usually a defender of the administration, stated, "If these documents are authentic and Nunes contested that, then Americans are deliberately misled on a critical issue. That's unacceptable regardless of party." On a competing network, liberal host Rebecca Jordan said, "Today, accountability in real time happened. Karoline Leavitt expected business as usual, but was confronted with evidence she couldn't spin or deflect. And when that happened, she walked away." As night fell, two press releases reached reporters almost simultaneously. Crockett's office announced a press conference for the following morning to release additional information about border security claims. The White House press office issued a single-line statement. Deputy Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt has requested and been granted administrative leave pending a review of today's congressional testimony. The message was clear. Leavitt had been suspended. What began as a routine oversight hearing had escalated into one of the year's biggest political scandals, hinging on the moment Crockett revealed documents Leavitt had never expected anyone to see. The following morning, Washington awoke to further shock. An anonymous Twitter account leaked the full email exchange between Leavitt's office and DHS officials. Far more extensive than what Crockett presented, the emails revealed that the statistical changes were not initiated by career officials. Butte requested by the White House communications team to craft a narrative of border security success. Most damaging was Leavitt's own email. These revised statistics give us exactly what we need. The 43% decrease will dominate headlines and silence critics. No one digs into methodology anyway. By 7:00 a.m., no one digs into methodology was trending nationally as shorthand for government deception. At 9:00 a.m., Crockett held her press conference on the Capitol steps, flanked by colleagues from both parties, demonstrating rare bipartisanship. She announced the formation of a special subcommittee to investigate whether similar statistical manipulations occurred in other policy areas. What we uncovered yesterday may just be the tip of the iceberg, Crockett stated firmly. The American people deserve to know if they are receiving accurate information about border security, the economy, and other critical issues, environmental protection, or any other area where this administration claimed success was suddenly under scrutiny. Jasmine Crockett revealed her source, a career civil servant at the Department of Homeland Security, who had grown increasingly uneasy with the pressure told her numbers to fit political narratives. This whistleblower showed remarkable courage, risking their career to prioritize truth over political convenience. At noon, the White House held its first official briefing since the scandal erupted. The press secretary, visibly uncomfortable, read a prepared statement. The president claimed he was unaware of any changes to statistical methods and emphasized his commitment to accurate, transparent information. He instructed all departments to review their data reporting practices to ensure integrity. Deputy Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt had submitted her resignation that morning, which the president accepted. When asked if Hestel stood by the administration's border security claims, the press secretary paused before responding. "We're conducting a full review of the data and will provide updated information once complete." This vague answer intensified speculation that the administration's immigration narrative had relied on manipulated statistics. By afternoon, political repercussions were evident. The Senate Majority Leader announced the immigration bill would be removed from the calendar, pending a full review of border data. Several moderate senators who had supported the legislation distanced themselves stating, "I can't vote on a bill when I don't know if the problem it's meant to address is accurately described." On Capitol Hill, the House Oversight Committee released an interim report detailing a timeline of the data manipulation. Preliminary findings described the administration's actions as a deliberate attempt to mislead Congress and the public. The report recommended a formal censure and potential contempt of Congress charges against Leavitt for false testimony. Political analysts quickly noted the broader implications. On a special evening broadcast, journalist Daniel Rivera said, "This scandal undermines the administration's core narrative that they solve problems based on facts, not ideology. If border data was manipulated, voters will question what else may have been misrepresented." Conservative media, initially cautious, now fully embraced the story. "This isn't a partisan issue," stated commentator Elizabeth Vaughn. "It's about honesty in government. No administration should manipulate data regardless of party." The Sean border lies spread beyond political circles. Celebrities and influencers weighed in, capturing the public mood. One viral post from a centrist commentator summed it up. "They didn't just lie about numbers. They lied about people's safety. They lied about a key issue facing our country." That's betrayal, not spin. For Karoline Leavitt, the consequences were immediate and severe. Her rapid political rise, built on a reputation for effectiveness and loyalty, now ended abruptly. Reports suggested she felt abandoned by the administration she had defended, particularly after the White House implied the president was unaware of actions she believed had been approved at the highest levels. Leavitt left Washington immediately after resigning, returning home to avoid media attention, and her social media accounts went silent. For Jasmine Crockett, the hearing transformed her from a respected but relatively junior congresswoman into a national figure almost overnight. Interview requests poured in, and her social media following tripled within 24 hours. Fellow Democrats described her as a rising star with limitless potential. Yet Crockett framed her actions as institutional. not personal. She told a reporter, "This isn't about targeting an individual. It's about maintaining the integrity of information provided to Congress. Oversight only works if we can trust the data we're given." A week later, the full impact of what became known as Boardgate unfolded. DHS released recalibrated border statistics using consistent methods, revealing a starkly different reality. While some improvements existed, the previously claimed 43% decrease in illegal crossing shrank to just 7%. The immigration bill, once central to the president's agenda, collapsed as congressional support evaporated. The White House announced a staff shakeup with multiple communications officials departing, alongside Leavitt. The president's approval ratings fell 7 points in a single week, the steepest drop of his term. The scandal also changed media practices. Journalists who had previously reported administration data at face value now employed fact-checkers to verify methodology. "Show me your math" became a common refrain at press briefings. A month later, the House Oversight Committee released a comprehensive 200-page report detailing a systematic effort to manipulate border data. Emails revealed that officials far more senior than Leavitt were involved. The report concluded the deception was coordinated, deliberate, and intended to mislead Congress and the public about border policy effectiveness. Appearing on a Sunday news program, Crockett reflected on the lessons of the episode. In a healthy democracy, facts matter more than narrative. When public servants manipulate reality to fit a story, they undermine accountable government. Leavitt assumed no one would check her math. But in Congress and across America, someone always will. And that's how it should be. As politics moved on, the Leavitt-Crockett confrontation remained a reference point, a moment when an administration's carefully constructed facade cracked under scrutiny. For communication staff across Washington, it served as a warning. Emails never truly disappear and methodology matters. For the public, it offered a rare, unfiltered view of how political narratives are created and how quickly they can unravel when someone asks, "Are these numbers real?" The documents exposed that day didn't just end Leavitt's career or derail a bill. They transformed how an administration communicated with the public and raised the standard for those that followed. In Washington, where perception often masquerades as reality, Crockett insisted on verifiable facts, turning a routine oversight hearing into one of the year's most consequential political moments. The day Karoline Leavitt walked out and could not undo the damage her deception caused. If you found this political drama insightful, like the video and subscribe for in-depth coverage of Washington's major confrontations. Hit the notification bell for updates on our next analysis of political showdowns that change American policy. Comment below with your thoughts on who might be the next figure exposed by documents that alter everything.